Hello everyone, I'm Himanshu Shah. If my first name is a little difficult to pronounce, I have a Starbucks name called Roy, so you can use that too. I'm a software engineer turned founder. I've had a chance to work on some really crazy ideas, and they've been able to take a shape. They've been able to take a life of its own, and people have been using it. So it's been a great journey. Currently, I run BrainJuice AI. We're formerly called Athon Labs. We are custom AI integrations for enterprises. So if you or your company is working on, if you have proprietary data that you are looking to run AI models on, then feel free to reach out. We can come up with interesting use cases to use that data. As software engineers, we're always trying to figure out ways in which we can make our life easier, right? So let's dive into this. So one of the main things is building a product is easy, but building the right one is difficult, right? So you want to make sure that there's enough people who are going to use that product, right? So today I thought we'll write a very simple program using AI that helps us find out a good market where you want to build a product and figure out that there's actually space to build a product as well. So what we'll do is we'll find the next big thing over the next 30 minutes that will make us a lot of money. Something that can be popular, but is terribly built. So we will basically find out alternate applications that are currently built, but are not very well done. And we'll use AI tools to find the niche. Essentially, we'll solve the ultimate product market fit problem. So let's dive a little deeper, right? Let's peel the next onion layer. So iOS apps have always been popular, right? So let's start there. Let's try and scrape iOS App Store and see if we can find applications that have more than 500 reviews, but are not well made. So the ratings are between 1 to 3.5. And we'll go to the App Store to get this info. We'll just scrape it. Again, this is just for education purposes, so should be fine. And so yeah, let's get started. So how many of you have used the ChatGPT 4? So this is a prompt that I've written, which allowed me to get ChatGPT 4 to write out a script, right? Very simple. We're saying write a Python program that searches for apps on the App Store using search terms from a file, filters the result by rating and number of ratings, and writes the filter data to a CSV. Limit the search to 300 apps per search term and filter the app ratings from 1 to 3.5. And App Store should have at least 500 ratings. Do not use any third-party APIs. Very simple. It's a cute little program. I don't want to run the ChatGPT again, but we do have a video here. So essentially the same thing for those who haven't used this before. We would just select a GPT-4 model. Here we are saying write a Python script using search terms, and we are adding more details. And then it just goes about, the LLM models does its magic, and it actually tells us that it's going to be using these libraries, and it prints out the Python script as is, right? Now, how many of you think that this script would actually work as is? Just raise your hands. So I would say this script didn't really work as expected, but being engineers, we know how to figure it out, right? So we'll basically check and see what needs to be tweaked. However, it kind of helps us expedite the process of actually creating the whole thing from scratch, right? Very simple. I'm sure a lot of you know about this. So nothing super fancy here, yeah? What we'll do is, so we run the code, and we're actually able to see that it finds out 12 different applications. One of them is Clever, which has like 2.4 ratings, and it has apparently 6,400 reviews on the App Store. So it's a very easy way for us to find out ideas, right? Again, kudos to ChatGPT for making this super easy. What we'll do is we will now start actually doing something fun, right? So this is like, I already knew this. I didn't have to attend the talk for it, right? So let's see. So I'm just going to run this again. It's going to run it, and then it's going to spit out a file, which is Okay, so it comes up with a file, and if you were to look at any of these, you would find that it is actually accurate information, right? So this is good, but as engineers, we cannot just use our company's software, keep writing it on ChatGPT. That's not going to work, right? So what's next? Well, you would have heard of GitHub Copilot. How many of you have actually heard about it? How many of you have used it? Very few people. Okay, so let's see what it is, right? So it's essentially a plugin for any IDE that you are using. So here I'm using Visual Studio, and if I go here, you just get the extension, GitHub Copilot, and just install it, and then pay $10-15, and it's gonna allow you to start using it. So let's do an example in terms of how exactly can you use this, right? So there's one thing here where the output is actually stored in, the output is stored in a CSV file. But let's say if we also want to store it in a JSON file. So how would I do that? I would first write a comment. I would say, write the output to a JSON file. And when you write a comment, that's when the model knows that this is the intent of what you're trying to achieve. So that's a very important thing. It's just as giving a prompt, So you say define save JSON, and then you just do a new line, and it's automatically finishing it. So as you can see, these tools, these AI tools plugins are essentially nothing but autocomplete, right? But for coding, right? And so it understands what programming language you're trying to work in. The only thing that's missing is the context, and that you can provide by giving comments. So this is good. Okay. So we need to write this file. So we say here, as soon as you press and enter, it automatically knows that, okay, you need to call this function. Well, this JSON output is missing. So actually I'd added it before. So that's what it is. I'm going to remove. I'm going to run the query again. So if I do that, now you should see that it actually worked, and you have the output also saved in the JSON file. So as you can see, it makes life super simple, right? Let's do another thing. So here we currently are, let's see. So we have a file which is called search terms. And here we are giving different kinds of terms to our Python script to say, look for education related apps, look for games related apps. I actually want to create a list and give it a list instead of a file. And let's see how it performs. So what I'll do here is I'll say search terms equal to, and I'll just create a Python list, right? So I'll just say business, games, social, comma. And then as you can see, it automatically figures out that what we are trying to do is different keywords in the App Store. And so it automatically finishes the Python list for me. So that kind of saves a lot of time, right? Essentially, it helps us as developers to focus more on some meaty stuff instead of just fiddling around with trying to find lists. So what I can do is, let's say if I want to search for Spanish, right? So I want to make the list in Spanish. And then, let's see, there you go. So now it actually transforms the entire list, each of the keywords into Spanish. let's say if we are doing some other program, right? And we are trying to find, okay, you know what? I want to get the weather of the top 10 cities in the US right now. I can just say list of top 10 cities by population in the US. And then so it figures it out, gives you the list. So this way, if you want to start doing MVPs, you want to test something out, you just want to get some random data. Let's say zip codes in SF, right? It figures it out what the zip codes are and gives it to you. So this way you can expedite, your workflow very, very fast. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so that's GitHub Copilot. Now, I want to move to something else. So this is essentially a tool that allows you to autocomplete. It's a very easy way for creating dictionaries, using real world data. The next thing I want to talk about is an alternative to Copilot. It's called Tab9. So Tab9 is another similar autocomplete for coding, and I have installed it in my IntelliJ. Okay, so you guys can see it. So pretty much the same thing. You just need to install it as a plugin and pay them $10-15 for it. What's difference between Tab9 and GitHub Copilot? So GitHub Copilot is very generic. If you start using it, you will soon realize that it gives you recommendations of programs that are not relevant to your code repository. However, Tab9 is very specific. It understands what you're trying to do, not just from the current file or from the current comment, but also from the other relevant files that you have. And so Tab9 could be much more useful when you have a larger code base. Let's see. So here, same thing. So what I've done here is, this is a different example where what I'll do is, instead of going to ChatGPT and giving the prompt, I'll just write the prompt here in the file. I'll say, write a Python program to look up the weather of top 10 cities in the world. Do not use any API keys, right? And what's going to happen here is you'll see that it's going to give me all kinds of imports, but you don't really know where is this leading to, Matplot, Seaborn, I don't think you need any of these for weather information, right? So the way you want to use these is you want to say function to get weather data, say main function, and then you can say run main function, and then here you can say get a list of top 10 cities in the world. There you go. Print the weather data. Now it writes the weather function, and here you don't really have, oops, it's too fast, it's difficult to keep up. So so that's how you can use this. The way you want to use it is basically use comments and then let autocomplete fill in those gaps and then review it so that you're not getting short. It uses an API key, yes. So that's the thing. As you can see, it doesn't always figure out and gives you the right thing. I'll tell you another one. So here we currently have. Okay. So now let's use GitHub Copilot in the same context, right? So here what I'll do is I'll say, get me the weather data. Yeah. And then I'm going to say, here I'm going to use GitHub Copilot. What it's going to do is actually pretty brilliant. It's going to give me different options of how you can actually define this, how you can implement the get weather data function in different ways. So here, there will be an option where we don't necessarily need to get API keys. And that way you can pick the one which fits what you're trying to do. That way it saves you time, right? Another cool aspect of this is it also gives you different ways of implementing it. So now you know if there is a more efficient way than compared to what you were thinking about, right? So that's GitHub Copilot and Tab9. Both of these tools are actually paid, so you just have to pay them, and they might be using different kinds of LLM models. I think Tab9 is using something. So actually, both of these, the way they function is they're using OpenAI, but then they're also using vector embeddings for your repository. So they're actually taking that repository data, creating vector embeddings, and then sending it back to OpenAI models. So what we'll do is, we already talked about this, and to save time, we're going to skip that. So developers are like James Bond, right? They don't have time for everything, especially not for writing unit tests. So there's an app, there's a plugin called Codium, which you can use to write unit tests. And the way it works is, we can see it here. Again, it's another, in the land of unlimited extensions, all you have to do is just install it. And it's called Codium. Codium AI. And then all you have to do is, let's go back to the file. Here. Once you install this, it's gonna show up. There's gonna be a small thing that's gonna show up as generate tests. There you go. Generate tests for the below function. When you click on it, then it's gonna start, actually it uses OpenAI 3.5 and 4, GPT-4 models. And it's gonna create a test suite of unit tests. It's pretty cool. It understands, it also does code analysis and suggestions in terms of how you can improve or optimize your code. This is gonna take some time. So what I'll do is instead, I'll just play the video. Okay. So there you go. So what I did here is, so I use the function get search results. I pick the function get search results, and all you have to do is just click on it, and it's going to send that function along with certain parts of your code to Codium. Then it's going to generate, it's going to try understanding the code, and then it's going to generate a test suite. The cool thing about this is you can give specific instructions in terms of what kind of test data do you want the model to use. You can also point it to say, you know what, I've written a few test cases. The other test cases should match this format, you know. As well as you can run all these unit tests in the code in the IDE itself. So you can just code analysis. So this is what the code analysis looks like. Yeah. So this is what the code analysis looks like, wherein it says, you know, sorry. Oh my God. James, what keeps coming back? Let's see. Okay, so in the test suite, you can send out example data, as I was mentioning, add example data inputs. You can mark them. You can say how many number of unit tests do you want to generate. By default, it's 6. And this is the kind of function that it's going to generate. You know, it's going to say the happy path. Oh, I see. Okay. So it's going to say happy path. It's going to figure out what the general behavior of the function should be, what the edge cases should be, and it's going to give you the unit test for each of those cases, yeah? And you can also run a test suite from here, as well as it's going to do code analysis. So this is how the code analysis looks like, where it's going to be objective of the function is to retrieve information, input, the flow, the output, and any other additional aspects. I'll just say two things. There's two more tools that I would suggest you guys to look into. It's called Mentalify, which is for documentation, and the other one, which is a Swiss Army knife for coding. It's called Codez. And with that, you can do code debugging, understand legacy codes, code optimization, as well as code translation between two programming languages. Yeah, a couple of points, but here is a QR code. I would say, feel free to sign up for the newsletter so that you can get the slides, and that has a video explaining each of these tools. I would say GitHub Copilot just because they are moving pretty fast compared to Tabnine. And GitHub Copilot CLI is something that I would say if you're not signed up for, you should. I think that's going to be pretty dope. Yeah. It really helps us become better programmers because you don't really have to wait for a senior engineer to review your code and tell you how to optimize it. You can also do faster load testing and such. So what I would say is previously people used to think about just programming, waterfall approach and all of that. Then we started moving towards test-driven development. Then we started moving towards business case-driven development. And I think now we are going into an era of comment-driven development where, all you have to do is write comments, understand what you're trying to do. And then, much of the heavy lifting is going to be done by these AI tools.